Hi, thanks for checking in again. I did say I would record another video because I made another synth for about the $75 mark. Yep, you'll see this is the one I was showing in the last video, and I'll put a link to this one. It's a DX emulation using a Raspberry Pi, Pi 02, and basically which gives it high quality audio out and 2 DIN sockets, but the hardware on this particular one is very centered around emulating the Yamaha DX type of synthesizer, and allows 8 instances of that in a box. So what I wanted to show you is the next one that I've made. I'm not giving anything away, so I bought these at the same time. But this is coming at the hardware with a different approach. So this time it's a larger screen. It's pretty much the same hardware apart from the screen. Again, very much plug and play. You can probably see from there that the Raspberry Pi 02 just plugs into a header, and it does the same thing, gives the 2 5-pin DIN audio out. And the aim of this one is to provide an emulation of the Roland MT-32. Now, the Roland MT-32 was I guess how to explain it. The very famous synth, I think at the time for Roland, was the Roland D50, which was based on part sampled, part synthesizer sounds, and a very famous synth that you will have heard. They produced a desktop version of that that I think primarily was meant for kind of home organ enthusiasts to sit on top of their organ and add extra sounds. And it, over the years, it's got a bit of a cult following, because for a long time it was the best way of adding MIDI music to old PC DOS games. So there's a huge culture, subculture set up around supporting music that basically is programmed to play on that. It predated the general MIDI standard, which is basically, in the days of early MIDI, the chaos was that you'd try and connect one machine to another, and the patches would have different numbers. So if you tried to play something, it was a mess because everything had the wrong instruments attached to it. General MIDI was kind of an attempt to have 128 presets that were roughly so that preset 0 was a piano, and preset 16 would be an organ. So you've got two things happening here, is that the MT32 was just before that standard, so is almost a standard in its own right, of a preset way of having synth sounds that are set up and will play back a standard music file. But the nice thing about this is that it has another mode which lets you play a thing called Soundfonts. Now, Soundfonts were basically set up with the general MIDI standard, and you can get a downloadable file. They can be very small, only just a few megabytes, right the way up to hundreds of megabytes. And on the whole, they're set up around the general MIDI standard. So the idea is that there are a whole bunch of sampled sounds. Many of the early synths around that time were called romplers, because basically they had a sound ROM with lots of preset sampled sounds and played straight out of the box. And again, the very familiar sounds of the 80s and 90s. So the idea of me building this particular one is to do pretty much the same thing. So same deal as last video. I've basically got it plugged in, just the MIDI out from the circuit tracks, going straight to the MIDI in of the basically the software that's running on this is called MT32-pi. I'll put a link to it in the description, and I've preloaded into it a Soundfont that's based on one of Roland's general MIDI boxes, the JV1010, just to give you an idea of what it sounds like. And again, some of these sounds are very, very familiar. You straight away you'll kind of think of things that you've heard them in. Let's so same deal. Put it on MIDI channel 1. I think definite Seinfeld vibes. I think you probably get immediately from that sort of thing. How about I put it on a more sensible kind of picked bass sound? So I'm doing the same thing as I was before. I've gone into the mixer page. I've turned down the internal synths of the circuit tracks. We've got the audio from the Raspberry Pi box that's playing the MT32 software, going straight into the tracks, and what I'm recording out is the audio out direct from the tracks with no input from the tracks. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm using the tracks just as a touch sensitive MIDI keyboard. So okay, okay, so same sequence that I did last time. That sounds better. And I've put a string sound on MIDI channel 2. Just an aside, I should mention that the advantage of taking the audio out from the MT32 box into the tracks is that you can then mix it using the mixer. So I can alter the amount using just these as faders, but it does have the ability to also add the internal circuit tracks effects. As without any effects, let's put some reverb on. Let's put some echo as well. So I can just add that to the 2 channels. So here we go. Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, great. Sounds fantastic. Okay, there's a slight problem when you're using this just with the tracks, that whereas for the synth 1 and synth 2, I can use the circuit track's own preset selection panel to basically change the patches that are on each of the MIDI channels here. And I guess what I didn't show you is that it has a readout that shows activity on each of the MIDI channels, so it's multi-timbral again. There's MIDI channel 4. The problem I was about to say though is that with MIDI channel, with MIDI 1 and MIDI 2, because essentially all you've got are the MIDI presets, you haven't got the ability to change channel, or at least I haven't figured out a way yet. If I do, I'll put something in the comments below just to kind of let you know how to do this. There's a long-winded way around it where you can go into the setup menu, you can change the MIDI channel of 3 and 4 to be on 1 and 2, and then you can use the preset to select patches that way, but for now let's ignore that. But yeah, so it actually does work quite nicely for got a sticky shift on that, so yeah, and nice piano sounds. Yeah, very much dance style piano, so I think we'll do all right there. And I think it makes a great partner again for the tracks. So what I'm going to suggest is that I'll produce some tracks using the internal synths and just MIDI 1 and 2 going into one of these boxes. So I'm currently on a Soundfont. That's a whole topic in itself, but they're lots of them freely available. I've already found a Korg M1 one that works really great. It's a really fun add-on for your tracks, and I think if you've got the small amount of ability to plug the bits together and set the software up, I'd really say give these a whirl. And I guess for my next video, in looking at these, there's something even more exciting coming for the Ableton Move, but I'll talk about that in a future video. I hope you found this interesting and like the sound of what you're hearing, and I'll go out with a little bit more music.